Michael Trackey is a massive shit stain. Point blank, it's fucking insane how big of a shit stain this motherfucker is, okay? It's truly remarkable because I get shocked every time I see dumb shit like this. I really do. This guy is a professional hack, is what he is. He's a bad faith actor clown. So AOC responded to a question where she basically says it's about what's going on with Iran right now. And she says, yeah, I think they're trying to goad us into war. And I'm not sure how. There were a few people who thought that she was talking about Iran when it was very obvious she was talking about the Trump administration. I really have no clue how you would get that as that being Iran doing that. It really didn't make any sense. But here's what Michael Trackey said. He said, Iran is trying to goad us? You sure it's not the way around? Isn't flying a giant surveillance drone in/around their territory a bit of goad? Beginning to question AOC's proficiency for effective political communication. And then he says, people are saying she's referring to the Trump admin, not Iran. That doesn't make sense. The Trump admin is trying to goad us into conflict? Who's us in that formulation? At minimum, it's unclear. Maybe be precise with your language when discussing potential military conflict. Then he says, I've seen multiple people tweet the clip with the same interpretation. Don't blame me because Yas Queen can't construct a sentence clearly when discussing prospective war. So there was one significant person who had mistakenly thought that she was talking about Iran doing, and that was Kyle Kulinski. But he corrected himself because he's not a hack like Michael Trackey. But still, I still don't understand how Kyle thought that she was talking about Iran. That seems very odd. But, look at how stupid this is. So he responds by saying, Iran's trying to goad us. Are you sure it's not the other way around? And basically, he's making the case here as to how the Trump administration is goading us into war. And then here, down here, he says, that doesn't make sense. The Trump admin is trying to goad us into conflict. Dumbass, you were just making that case up here. I've never seen a more obtuse fucking idiot in my entire life than Michael fucking Trackey, dude. And Jimmy Dore also tweeted out a similar responses, but deleted it after finding out that, I think he said shame in response, but he deleted it very fast because he figured out that she wasn't talking about Iran. She was talking about the Trump administration. So, here's actually, here's what happened where Kyle Kulinski ends up jumping in. So a dude says she's referring to the United States. He says what she said makes no sense, and then he responds saying it does actually. And then Michael Trackey responds saying no, it doesn't. Why would the United States need to goad the United States? How about minimum standard for rhetorical clarity when discussing prospective military conflict? It's a very basic concept of having to goad the U.S. into war. That happens with every single war because there has to be a reason to go to it because there does have to be some sort of approval from the people, right? And in their minds, they want something that's a justification. You know, back when FDR was president, he wanted to go to war really bad against the Nazis. He kind of knew. He was kind of ahead of his time. He knew he was ahead of the American people where he was like, fuck, we need to get into this war. And so he was trying to do shit to goad the U.S. into war. Obviously, that was a justified war, going to war against the Nazis. But, so a lot of you guys probably don't know this, but he ended up announcing on one of his fireside chats. I don't know if it was fireside chat or announcement or something, but he announces a fake map of South America that was supposedly different borders drawn up by the Nazis and what they were going to do. But it turned out to be 100% fake. Now, there's a question as to whether FDR knew it was fake or not. His notes showed that he probably did know it was fake, but there's no way to be 100% sure. But that's the way you go into war, whether it be the Gulf of Tonkin, which is an attempt to goad the people into a war, whether it be World War I and the shit that happened with, the Lusitania and the fucking Zimmerman telegram. All these different things are an attempt to get people to support the war. That's what it means by goading us into the war, by A, providing a justification that would hopefully bring up the approval of the people in the United States, and B, to have some sort of a semblance of a reason for the administration as to why the fuck they would do it in the first place. And so it turns out that he was just piggybacking off of Kyle Kulinski, thinking that because Kyle Kulinski did it, he's in the clear and he's trying to hop on the clout chase. So he says, here's where I first saw the clip, and it's the tweet of where Kyle, for some reason didn't understand that she was talking about the Trump administration. And he says, read it again and listen again. My first hearing was wrong. And he brings his tweet in which he explains that he misread it. And then he says, you were confused for good reason. Her statement was garbled and unclear. And Kyle says, I think the question was the problem, to be honest, phrased awkwardly. Still, I should have read it over a few times before I commented. And then Michael Trackey says, or she should have been more clear considering she's a professional politician with a massive platform. Again, when I first saw that clip, I was like, she's obviously talking about the Trump administration, guys. I don't know how anybody could have mixed that one up. But I know why Michael Trackey did it. It's because he's a professional hack. That's the reason why. So, despite completely being wrong and like literally contradicting himself within a span of 2 tweets, he continues to hold his grift. This guy's a complete clown, a complete joke, and a complete fucking clown is what this guy is. And I just find it really remarkable. Now, one thing I will say is that AOC's only weakness does seem to be foreign policy. I don't really see her talking about that much. She seems to be like a domestic policy expert, or specialist, I should say. And so I guess Ilhan Omar fills the gap because she's more foreign policy driven, although she's doing a lot of domestic stuff too. Like, I think she's trying to push a bill that would end school lunch shaming or something like that in schools. But, I think that she is kind of like AOC's counterpart in that she's more of a foreign policy specialist, whereas AOC is more of a domestic policy specialist. So I do think AOC could be more vocal and care more about foreign policy issues, but she does have quite a bit on her plate. But I would like her to, be a little stronger on her foreign policy positions. But Michael Trackey is a hack, and fuck that guy.